Hi, Angela. Completing an EQ 360 is an experience that I have not encountered in my personal life. I've received quality feedback before in the way of performance reviews and from one-on-ones, but this was an entirely different and very enlightening experience for me. To have insight at a specific point in time from multiple people in my life whom I trust is a gift and a benchmark I can use for future reference. The purpose of this podcast is to explore the areas that I both found affirming and surprising in the review of my EQ 360. I plan to examine what inspired changes I would like to make and the results that I would expect in both my personal and professional life. Reviewing a report of this size can be difficult to digest at first, but analyzing each area and what it truly means can be viewed as a guide of how to make impactful changes in both your personal and professional setting. I'd first like to explore what I believed was affirming. As I reviewed my EQ 360 for the first time, a few factors rang true to me. Empathy, assertiveness, and interpersonal relationships all seemed to align closely with how I rated myself, meaning that each of my groups provided a very similar rating within 10 points. Assertiveness, in particular, is one that caught my eye, as it aligns to all raters very closely. I'm proud to be an assertive leader. I stand my ground and ensure my voice is heard. I hold a confident opinion and I am vocal, especially on behalf of my team. However, I did hold a moment of worry with this affirmation. Assertiveness, as Stein and Book reference in EQ Edge, can be commonly confused with aggressive conduct. My initial concern was that I was mistaken as aggressive subsided once I reviewed the literature more thoroughly. The EQ Edge went on to affirm that assertiveness is characterized by a clear statement of one's feelings, accompanied by the consideration of the thoughts and feelings of others. This is what separates assertiveness from aggression. Indeed, my EQ 360 summary indicates that interpersonal relations, emotional self-awareness, and empathy, all areas that I felt I was aligned with, were important balances to assertiveness to enhance emotional functioning. Another area that I thought was affirming was emotional self-expression. All raters, again, were quite aligned. I was reassured by this area of my EQ 360 because when broken down, so much of how we are perceived is not through our words, but through our actions. Stein and Book agree that the way that we come across to others greatly influences their opinion of us. As my team has transitioned to work from home over COVID, I'm comforted to know that I still display enough emotional expression to match my actions with those of their words and intention. Still, with both of these affirmations came caution. Goleman warns of display rules, the social consensus about which feelings can be properly shown when. The EQ Edge agrees with this thought, cautioning a lack of congruity between action and words can lead to feelings of dismissed. Being too assertive or too overly emotionally expressive can be detrimental and need to be set in balance. Admittedly, I was initially shocked and hurt by the number of blind spots I had. I had a bit of a primitive response, including some tears, feelings of fear, and some emotional memories, which I learned from Goleman is quite natural and stemmed from my amygdala. However, as I explored my blind spots, I realized that there were some quick opportunities because the discrepancy with my low self-rating that others didn't necessarily agree, meaning that my blind spots were due to others holding me in a higher regard than I did myself. Objectively, the most surprising part of my EQ 360 was in the realm of decision-making, particularly problem-solving. I felt discouraged at the discrepancy between the rating of my manager and how I rated myself. Although there is agreement that I don't give up when frustrated, the similarities ended there. I turned to my EQ Edge and the ABCD exercise to look at this more objectively. I went through the exercise looking at this activating event, my response to my perceived low rating, and the beliefs and consequences of this. It was clear as I completed this exercise that my self-defeating beliefs led to some hot feelings as consequences, as Stein and Book reference them. Debating, disputing, and discarding allowed me to finally note of where the others of my other raters stood on my scale, which were much higher. It also allowed me to recognize that I've only worked with this manager for a few weeks, and she joined the department in the midst of major transition that has been going on for some time, leaving our team fatigued and resistant to change. The opportunity that revealed itself is perhaps not about me changing my problem-solving style, but rather the opportunity to demonstrate more clearly the skills that I do have in solving problems. I feel it's easy to look at a report of this magnitude and feel like there's so much that needs to be changed. Rather, if I were to focus on one area of change, I believe it would cause a cascade effect on this report in a number of my blind spots. The change I believe would make the most impact is that in the self-perception realm, specifically self-regard. The gap between my own self-rating and that of the others in my group was significant, 30 points at the edges. The EQ edge cautions self-regard on both ends of the spectrum. Too high is problematic, while low self-esteem may be dysfunctional. It goes on to say that fixating on weaknesses is every bit as unbalanced as blowing your strengths out of proportion. Admittedly, I am hard on myself. I take any failure or slight against my team personally, allowing myself, as Goleman describes, to be engulfed, swamped by emotions and helpless to escape them. Indeed, having a low self-regard is hindering so much of what I am capable of and creating blind spots in my life. Unsure of where to start, I turned to my EQ 360 assessment, and the excellent strategies for action were found just there. First, completing a self-regard inventory is something that I can work into SMART goals. Making a list of strengths that I believe I have and assigning each strength to an area that needs to be leveraged for improvement can create some improvement. An example of putting this into practice would be identifying that I have sometimes resisted greater challenges at work because I don't feel I have the competency to excel in them. I allow my own self-regard to hold me back. One of my strengths, though, is my network. I have many wonderful relationships, both personally and professionally, to call on for help. If a challenge is too much, I always know who to turn to for advice, clarification, or even just a morale boost. However, if I were to put this through the ABCDE exercise on the activating event of taking on new challenges at work, my D column would point out that I have never in fact failed at a new challenge, so why would I this time? Recapping, finding a list of strengths to leverage and keeping that list close by can remind me each day as I take on new challenges that I am successful. I have a strong network to both lift me up and hold me accountable when necessary. This is something I can start immediately and put into practice on a daily basis, most likely seeing changes quickly. The other goal pertaining to self-regard is one of visualization. See it, think it, do it. The EQ 360 describes that in addition to developing self-regard on the inside, you also need to consider how you represent yourself to others. Seeing what success looks like is the first step. Taking time to visualize success in my own mind would give me a clear path to any problem. A great way to put this into practice is by utilizing the decision-making realm described in the EQ Edge, pairing reality testing with that of the 6 steps for problem solving, with a specific focus on generating alternatives and evaluating them. Once I've visualized alternatives, the next step is choosing the best option. Thinking about how I could achieve that success and communicating it to others sets that clear path in motion. Finally, presenting myself appropriately when communicating my plan, reinforcing it, and seeing it across the finish line not only boosts my own self-regard, but when paired with other EI skills, demonstrates my competency for problem solving. While the goal of visualizing seems simple, I believe it's something that allows me to take a step back, carve out some time to think about options, strategies, and how to communicate it effectively. Again, this is something I could implement immediately and see short-term gain in my self-regard. Ultimately, my goal is to take Goleman's described engulfed state and transition it to one of self-awareness, having sophistication about one's emotional life, being autonomous and sure of their own boundaries. Book and Stein put my thoughts towards my goals the best. It's in your own best interest, they say, to open your mind to new possibilities and new ways to change. Building unfamiliar skills requires awareness, dedication, and practice on your part. Additionally, they add, to make real progress, you need action-oriented goals, specific manageable steps that lead to the desired results, and always stated in positive terms. I believe the goals that I have here are expressed in those terms. I am now excited to examine some of the anticipated outcome that implementing these goals would mean. Making change in my own self-regard would be a daily practice, as EQ Edge just reinforced. It will take dedication. Still, I don't want to come with worry. I don't want to come for validation. I'm coming for a new start. Leveraging some of these goals and starting them immediately should have several positive impacts on my personal and professional life. Professionally, setting clear paths, communicating clear direction, and appropriate follow-up paired with some of my other appropriate EI skills would be a win for my team. They need a confident leader who believes in herself, and that translates to clear outcomes for my team. Keeping my confidence up by taking time to visualize and work through problems will pair with the morale boosts from my network and also being held accountable by them when needed. We must strive to be conscious of what we feel and why we feel the way that we do, so we aren't driving blindly by internal forces or pushed into self-defeating behavior by default. This quote from EQ Edge affirms that continuing to be conscious and keeping time to reflect on my own self-regard will keep me from falling back in old habits. In addition, the goals I have laid out for myself, the goals that I had laid out for thought-out plans that are clearly communicated will also assist in the comment I had made previously about demonstrating to my manager that I do have excellent problem-solving skills, and she can see this in practice. Self-regard and demonstrating my ability to problem solve will move the needle significantly in my blind spots. Personally, it goes so much further than this. Being hard on myself professionally only carries into my personal life. I bring home stress, and as Goleman states, allows my strong feelings to wreak havoc in reasoning awareness, leading to feelings of ruinous, especially in weighing the decisions on which our destiny largely depend, which is what I think my personal life is. Improving my self-regard in my personal life, paired with the areas that I feel were affirming, allows for balanced happiness, role modeling, and flexibility. As a mother, this is specifically important. Because as Goleman points out, first, emotions are contagious. And second, especially with children, the concept of mirroring or mimicry can be hindering if I'm displaying low self-regard. If I want to be a positive role model to my family, practicing daily reflections will certainly engage and improve this area with a lifelong ripple effect. In closing, it is easy to look at this EQ 360 report like an IQ test. The higher my score, the better I am. I know this is not the case. Really, it's finding a balance that works for me and being okay with that. Exploring the areas that I thought were affirming were enjoyable. It helped me identify strengths that I can utilize towards my goals. While the areas that were surprising stung initially, being able to objectively look at these through the context of my own situation helped me synthesize in a way that pointed me in a better path where my emotional brain wanted to take me. I felt better to tackle goals after reading Goleman, Book, and Stein. Pairing that with the breakdowns from the EQ 360 allowed me to create clear objectives in the area of self-regard that felt realistic, timely, and manageable. I look forward to putting these into practice and seeing the effect that these changes will bring both my professional and, more importantly, my personal life. Thanks, Angela.